The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at www.mtsu.edu/CEM.
Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Clark, Director of the Center for Educational Media and Professional Development at MTSU's College of Education. Welcome to the first SPED Collaborative, created to support special education teachers with opportunities to learn from experienced practitioners. This initiative is practitioner-oriented, offering ideas for effective classroom practices. Our session topics are identified based on your requests. We ask you, what do you need? Who are the good practitioners in special education? We listen to you, and then we plan our sessions based on your feedback. Originating in the Center for Educational Media at MTSU, the SPED Collaborative is happy to partner with the Tennessee Council for Exceptional Children, and we look forward to future partnerships with the Tennessee Department of Education. The SPED Collaborative is part of the larger professional development program in the College of Education known as the PK-12 Collaborative at MTSU. The PK-12 Collaborative currently has 3 initiatives: the ELL Collaborative, the School Counselors Collaborative, and now the SPED Collaborative, all practice-oriented and practitioner-driven. And because we are supported by MTSU's College of Education, we can offer these collaborative sessions to you at no cost. For more information about the PK-12 Collaborative and upcoming events, please go to our website, mtsu.edu/CEM. Now, I'm happy to welcome Dr. Alicia Pence to join us today. Dr. Pence is a member of the faculty in the Department of Elementary and Special Education in MTSU's College of Education. Dr. Pence serves as the faculty coordinator for the SPED Collaborative and has worked with the SPED Collaborative Advisory Board to plan today's session with some top-notch presenters. Dr. Pence, thank you for agreeing to serve as the faculty coordinator for the SPED Collaborative, and for all you have done to help us launch this professional development initiative.
Good morning, Dr. Clark. I am thrilled to be a part of our first ever SPED Collaborative at Middle Tennessee State University. As faculty coordinator for this collaborative, I have spent time with several of my special education colleagues from across the state of Tennessee. Through this partnership, special ed teachers, administrators, and leaders right here in our state have created the agenda for today's presentations. I would like to take a moment to thank those who have served on the Special Ed Advisory Council for their dedication to the field of special education and commitment to the SPED Collaborative. I would like now to introduce our presenters for the first session related to collaboration and co-teaching. Dr. Melinda Pope is a behavioral specialist with Rutherford County Schools and an adjunct professor at Middle Tennessee State University. Mrs. Carissa Chrisman is a current special education resource teacher at Irma Siegel Elementary School, part of the Murfreesboro City School District. And finally, Mrs. Denise Perkins has been a special education teacher for over 20 years and has also worked with elementary age students in the resource setting within the Rutherford County and Murfreesboro City School Districts. Thank you for beginning our presentations this morning and welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Pence, for that introduction and also the opportunity to be a part of this wonderful conference. I want to welcome each of you for coming and being willing to learn, because this is what education is about, is constantly evolving with the needs of the students that we serve. Many times we ask ourselves, how do we accomplish the goals for our students with such diversity in today's classroom? And we can't do it just one. It takes a collaborative effort, which means co-teaching is at the forefront. And many times in the class that I teach, people ask, what is co-teaching? And they expect an elaborate definition. And it's simple. It is two or more people working together to serve the students. Nothing more, nothing less. That key word is working together. And there are 5 elements of co-teaching. The first one is you have to set a common goal. When you are working with others, you need to know what you're working for. What do we wish to accomplish? It does not mean just the standard. It means as far as our students' interactions, the participation in class, that social emotional growth. You have to be working for that common goal and to know what our purpose is when working together. The next element that you have to keep in mind is the shared belief system. You have to believe that each person involved matters and is necessary. When you are working with others, having your philosophy of teaching and sharing what your general belief is as an educator is essential to understanding where everyone stands, what everyone's belief system is. And many times there are commonalities amongst us because we're all in it for the same reason, and that is to educate children. The next element that you need to consider is parity. And parity sometimes is one of the most difficult because as teachers, most of us are type A personalities. So when we think of this, that parity, you have to be willing to switch roles. You have to be the teacher at one point and a learner at the other. You have to be the giver and also the receiver. It is a constantly evolving process. It needs to be fluid, and you have to be open to relinquishing some of that power, relinquishing that type A that is ingrained in most of us, and working for that common good and that common goal with our shared belief system. The fourth element that we have to keep in mind is a theory, and it's one of the best as far as educational, and that's the distributed functions of leadership theory. This theory lies not in seniority, not in the degrees that one holds. Its focus is the strengths of each team member. The focus is who can better serve the child with this standard for instruction, with this pre-vocational skill, to an emotional connection with the child. It isn't about anything more than looking at each person's strengths and weaknesses. And that person with that strength takes the lead. Now, do not confuse the situation as that means that we always want to improve our weaknesses, right? That is a good opportunity to learn from one another and your team. It simply is, if you have a strength in something, that why not maximize that potential? Why not optimize that learning for the students within the classroom? So I urge each of you, when you are collaborating with others, that you discuss those strengths and weaknesses. And you have to have self-awareness of your own strengths and weaknesses as well. We all have them, and that is part of the growth process. I also believe that it is great to model that within the classroom. Our students need to see that we recognize that we aren't strong in every area, that we work together to make that community of learning a happy, safe, secure environment. The fifth element of co-teaching is that cooperative process. And that process is active. It's engagement with others. It is not something that we can have one conversation and we're one and done. The cooperative process takes effort, it takes time, and it takes purpose of what you are doing. You have to have face-to-face interactions. And I know the past couple of years with COVID, that has made it difficult in some perspectives, but you have to sit at a table and have these discussions. Time is always an issue. However, when you are learning your co-teaching partners, you have to be able to have those face-to-face discussions, and it makes it easier to learn each other's similarities, differences, beliefs, and it reduces misunderstandings as well. You know, we have all sent that text message or read that text message and like, oh, I wonder what that person means. That face-to-face interaction helps that cooperative process. Another factor that needs to be considered is positive interdependence. We have to realize that not one person can educate all children. It takes a village. It takes the general education teacher. It takes the special education teacher. It takes those related service providers such as social workers, school counselors, behavior specialists, school psychologists. We collaborate also with our English language learner teachers that are essential to the makeup as well. So we have to, again, relinquish that thought of we can do all. And we also have to relinquish the thought that this is your student, this is my student. We have to embrace this is our students. The next is with co-teaching, you need to monitor the progress. And I know each of you are thinking something else to take data on. And no, it is a reflective process. That is what we do in education, right? We reflect on our practice. We reflect on our craft. We reflect on, is what I'm doing working? And it's not just about the grades of the students. Again, participation in class, the community within the classroom, the communication amongst team members. You need to monitor the progress and celebrate the wins and what is working right, and recognize the fact that we can always improve in areas. And that is a good thing. We always want to grow as professionals, no matter what level we're at. So this monitoring is just another step in the growth process as us as educators and as a team working collectively. What we also have to have is individual accountability. Each of us hold a responsibility to our teammates and also to the students that we serve. We have to be aware that our actions and our decisions affect others, and that we have to work together for that common goal. It is important to self-reflect. It is important to acknowledge things that you could handle differently, better. And it's important to acknowledge things that, hey, I might not have handled that quite well, or I probably should have reached out to this other expert in this field. We need to know that our accountability in the process does not mean that we are incompetent. It means that we recognize that we are all human, we will make mistakes, and we always have room to grow. Co-teaching is not an easy process, and there are many factors that come into play as far as time management. When can we meet? How can we meet? How often do we need to meet? The best thing that you can do is to know each other's roles and to discuss those roles. You have to know what the responsibilities are of each person and make sure that everyone is on the same page. Know that co-teaching is not stagnant. It is a fluid process. What you do one day does not have to match what you do the next day. I often will be asked, what co-teaching model is best? Is it team teaching? Is it one teach, one assist? Is it supplementary, station? There's no right answer. The model that is best is the model that is effective for your students in the environment in which you teach. Every district has different resources. Every school has different makeups of how their team works. One school may only have 2 special education teachers for a whole grade level. Team teaching might be difficult in that situation. However, there are certain schools that we have teachers that are working with the same subject matter and can meet and help plan those lessons. There's no right or wrong. The right way is being able to be open to communicate, open to learning, open that we all are here to serve the common goal of educating our students. And we want our students to know that we know that they can learn. We believe in them. We have this team that is working for them, and we want to be an advocate for their learning, and that is for all students. When you are listening to the speakers today, please make sure that when you have questions, enter them into the chat. These individuals have experience. They have had some losses. They have had some wins. They have had the experience of working with others. And it is so important to be able to voice your concerns and to get more details if you need it. So please do not be shy during this conference. We are all here learning together, and your questions may even elicit thoughts that we may not have thought of ourselves. So again, as educators, we are a community that goes beyond working in a single school and a single district. We're a community working for our common profession and the students that we serve. I hope you all get as much out of the conference as I believe that you will. And I appreciate again the opportunity that I've had today to speak. And Dr. Pence, I want to thank you as well for bringing me into such a wonderful experience. So thank you.
We appreciate it, Dr. Pope. Thank you for your wise words of wisdom. You've given us lots to ponder as we move on to our next presenters, Mrs. Carissa Chrisman and also Mrs. Denise Perkins.
Hi, Dr. Pence. Thank you so much for this opportunity. We are so excited. It is about time that special ed got our chance. So thank you, Dr. Clark, and your team for putting this together and allowing us to be a part. It's definitely a great resource, and I can't wait to see the same things to come. So Carissa and I both have been teaching for over 20 years, and we have seen so many changes in education. But one of the biggest changes that we have seen has been the relationship between the general and special education teachers. I'm kind of showing my age, but I could go back and tell you I taught when Miss Hicks was teaching reading, little Johnny came to me. And when Miss Hicks was teaching math, little Johnny came to me in the resource setting. So we have come so far in changing how we do special education and changing how we work together. And so we're just going to kind of share some of our experiences, some things we've learned along the way. Like Dr. Pope said, some wins and some losses. But our biggest thing is we just wanted to be real with you today. So our focus is going to be on collaboration. What is collaboration? Why collaboration is important, and how to effectively collaborate. Dr. Pope has mentioned some of these things, but we're going to add in some stories and some of our own experiences to just give you that narrative of what we're seeing. You would think after 20 years, I or over 20 years actually, that I would say I have arrived as a special education teacher. But I can tell you for myself, and Chris, I'm sure you would agree, that every year is a new learning experience, and every year I grow. So for your practitioners out there that are getting ready to start teaching, be patient. Be patient. That's what I'm going to tell you, because every year there's going to be something more that you gain. You're going to get a new tool. You're going to find that that tool doesn't work anymore, but stay the course, because our kids need you. Okay, sorry, I kind of got on a bandwagon there. So I'm going to talk to you about what is collaboration. And to me, collaboration, it's a simple term, but it covers a variety of areas. And there are a lot of moving parts. And those moving parts are people. So we know when we're dealing with people that you've got a lot going on. You've got emotions, you've got schedules, you've got people's, their prior experiences, what they believe. And so when you put that together, and a lot of times we're all women as well, you put that together, that can cause some challenges. But the simple term about collaboration is that it means working together. It means a partnership, teamwork, having an alliance, a joint effort. But arriving at those meanings is going to take time and commitment. So do not give up. Hang in there. One thing I have learned about collaboration is it's a process. It is not a method. There is not an XYZ to get you there. It's going to take a lot of those moving parts. Collaboration can look different from day to day, and it's often based on the needs of the student, their experience, or the understanding of the general ed teacher. Now, a lot of times we might say, well, they've been teaching for a long time. Your gen ed teachers out there, they've been teaching, they know how to work with our students. That's not necessarily true. Or we might look at our brand new teachers and say, well, they don't have a clue what to do with our special education teachers. Well, thankfully for places like MTSU and Dr. Pence and Dr. Pope and the classes they're offering, that is not true either. So we just have to look at collaboration, see where we're at in that instance. And again, there's just not a formula for that. So one thing, so I always try to come up with a way, being a special education teacher, I always try to come up with a way to help my kids hold on to things. So I know many of you do that too, just something that they can visualize. So for me, collaboration is kind of like an elevator. So we all get on level 1. We're all at the lobby. Everybody, gen ed, new SPED teachers, old SPED teachers, wherever you are in the process, we all get on at that same point, the lobby, level 1. And this is the point where as the special education teacher, you are sharing specific information with that general education teacher. You're telling them about their disability, their strengths, their weaknesses, their present levels, their services. You're working out schedules, all of those things that are the foundation for working with that teacher about that student. So those are going to be like your IEPs at a glance, or a lot of those meat and potatoes that are in your IEPs. That's our first floor. Everybody's got to have that. You have to have that. And I highly recommend that you do that person to person. I've had a lot of teachers who have told me that, the special ed teacher just gave them the IEP at a glance and, signed it, and here we go. Our teachers need more than that, and our students deserve more than that. We're so lucky, at least I'm lucky, because I teach 4th, 5th, and 6th. So I get to see a lot of these kids for 3 years. So by grade 6, I know them. So if I can give that teacher a little bit of background, a little bit about what he likes to do, what sets him off, whatever I can do to help make that transition, that is going to benefit everybody in the long run. That's probably going to keep me from having to go to that class and assist quite as much. So the more you can do to get that gen ed teacher ready for that student is going to go a long way. So that's our ground floor. That's our elevator. We're all getting on that floor. So the reason I kind of think collaboration is more like an elevator than stairs is because we're not always going to go to level 2 or level 3 or level 4. It's going to kind of vary. And these levels, this is not in a textbook. This is just Perkins 101. I don't know how I just came up with this, but so the next level of collaboration, which we could say is level 2, but it's going to be dependent upon that student. It's going to be dependent on that difficulty of the curriculum. I do teach 4th, 5th, and 6th or in special education. So a lot of times those students have huge gaps. So we have a first grader or a 5th grader reading on a first grade level. That's challenging. That's challenging for that child. That's challenging for that teacher. So being able to determine what that child needs kind of lets you know what level of support to give in that collaboration. So it could look like attending PLCs. You know, we try to do that the best we can. I know a lot of times our schedules, you know, make that difficult, but trying to make a priority to at least attend those PLCs when you can. Assisting with modifying assignments, helping them with tests, sharing visuals. As SPED teachers, we are the visual queens. The one thing I have learned is that it's not just our special education students who benefit from those visuals. Giving those teachers some learning and behavior strategies. You know, the more and more behaviors increase within our classrooms, the more and more that they are seeking special educators to help with that. So the more we can collaborate, the more we can talk with those teachers, just as simple as, so I have a student that has autism that likes to argue. And if you tell him he was wrong, he will tell you why he was right. And it just becomes this huge, long conversation. So I can't be in there with him all day. So we created some visuals. And we went in and we modeled it and we talked to the teacher and we said, you know, when he's not paying attention, just put this card down. Look at teacher. Don't look at him. Don't make eye contact. Don't start a conversation because then we have that power struggle. You know, whenever he's doing a good job, you know, I always try to go back and, you know, good job. Hey, so he remembers. And now when I go to get the card out, he's like, I know. So, but giving those teachers those strategies that they can do even when we're not in the room. Putting down a card, that's just walking around the room. And you're helping with those behaviors. So, and I pull those cards out for gen ed students as well. So those are just some, maybe more of like a level 2 or the second floor of our elevator of ways that we can help that gen ed teacher. Most of the time, these are going to occur through emails, meetings, face-to-face. You know, we're all pushed for time, but, you know, usually those are happening outside of the gen ed classroom. So going on up our elevator, to me, the third level of collaboration, this is going to take place mostly in the gen ed room. I am at an elementary school as well as Carissa. And so because we have multiple grades, we can't spend huge amounts of time within the classrooms. So we have something that we've called push in. And so pushing in is you're going into the classroom for a chunk of time. So you're not in there for the entire time, maybe 30 minutes of the 90-minute block or whatever your schedule will allow. This is where I've been very actively involved this year. And honestly, I have worked harder than I've worked in 20 years, but I have loved it. So this pushing in, you're going into a portion of instruction, you're providing support for that grade level content, you're continuing to help with behavior, monitoring, helping to redirect, but you're not just focused on that special education student or students. You are there for whoever needs whatever. Now, of course, our special ed students are our priority. So your teacher, your role in the classroom as the SPED teacher is typically not teaching the entire class. You're typically there as a support, but you're not there to grade papers or run errands or whatever. You are there to assist with that instruction. So this is where I'm currently very involved. So this year I have several fairly challenging students that are in the class together in 5th grade. And so I travel with them for 30 minutes for math and 30 minutes for an ELA block. And one of my students is on a 1st grade level, and she's trying to access 5th grade content. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And if I hadn't gone into that classroom to watch it, I really would not have realized what she was going through every day. So you become an active participant in the classroom. For me, I know all the students now. Before I started doing this, I probably could tell you 10 kids within our building that didn't receive special education services. So it's opened that door for me to feel more of the community, or a part of the community at our school, and also more a part of the grade level. I'm not responsible for the teaching. I am not teaching standards. I'm trying to better understand standards, but I am not teaching standards. But I am clarifying instructions. Sometimes gen ed teachers will just give you a little blip and do it. And my kids are like, take out agenda. That's all I heard, So I'm there clarifying. I'm there participating in group discussions. We do a lot of turn and talk to your table. And I join in on those conversations, prompting, get out your book, those things that as that teacher is instructing, I'm trying to take care of all the little things going on around in her room. Redirecting, questioning, just trying to get everybody where they need to be for effective learning. And sometimes it's even, sometimes I will even ask like dumb questions like, oh, you mean all I have to do is underline the similes or something like that, when I think that the students did not quite get what she was asking them to do. So my gen ed teacher, unfortunately, we're friends. And so that has been really cool because we have a relationship already. Now, sometimes it can make it hard too, because sometimes I can get a little, we're protective of our SPED kids. So sometimes I can get a little mama bear, but I try to, walk aside like Dr. Pope was saying and work through those things. But she told me it was like having an extra set of hands. This has opened my eyes up to what our general ed teachers are expected to do each day in an amazing way. I had no clue about standards. I mean, I would read over them and sit in meetings and be like, oh, okay, but actually what all they have to do to get prepared to teach. Previously, I would just encourage teachers. I'm like, okay, here's the IEP, follow the accommodations, bye-bye, see you later. Let me know if you have questions. Well, then I started looking at the assessments and I started being in there when they were doing the assignments. And I started seeing what a difficult task we were giving our teachers to do by themselves. And we were there for support, but so this new perspective has just helped me see that difficulty, how it is hard to scaffold that content, especially when we have such a gap with our students. And keep all those other balls in the air, lunchroom count and field trips and all the other things that they do. I'm sure if you are on here and you're a special education teacher or a special education practitioner, that you have heard, it takes a special person to teach special ed. I know you've all heard that. I know you have. But I can tell you, our gen ed teachers deserve that special too. At this level, I have seen true collaboration just begin, and there's greater respect. So the special ed teacher is gaining so much respect for gen ed, and the opposite is happening too. Gen ed is like, wow, you have a lot going on. Like, look at all the things you're doing, and so that relationship has grown, and it's no longer. It's a process, like we talked about, but it's no longer gen ed, special ed. It's more us looking and saying, this is our student. How do we work together? How do we partnership? How do we work together to make this year successful for this child? Because that is our ultimate goal. And I know I'm going long. about to flip it to you there, Ms. Carissa, but the other couple of levels that Dr. Tucker is going to talk to you about a little bit more in collaboration are things like parallel teaching, where maybe one teacher's, doing a small group, another teacher's doing a small group. This takes a lot of planning and a lot more time in the general education classroom. And that has been a little bit more difficult for us to do especially in our larger elementary schools. And then the top floor of that elevator is definitely that co-teaching model where Gen Ed and SPED both have ownership of the classroom. They're both delivering content. And we see that a lot more, like I said, in our middle and our high schools, because they're able to offer that in a different way. And Dr. Tucker's going to share that in his next session. So Carissa, I'm going to give it to you to tell us why collaboration is important, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Denise. Yeah, like Denise was saying, collaboration is important. And just talking about collaboration, to me, collaboration is the passageway that facilitates connectivity between learning environments and learning styles, celebrating inclusion and diversity. Collaboration at its core helps to cultivate high-level thinking skills for all students in various learning styles and deficiencies. No one educator is responsible for remediation and differentiating along learning styles, but collaboration helps to equally disperse the responsibility among various educators who are all a part of the learner's village. Collaboration is the key to maintaining the sanctity of inclusion over all school environments for all learners. The reason this collaboration between general education and special education is important is it builds trust, you share responsibilities, you provide feedback, it increases student learning, it increases lasting relationships, and it promotes positive impact. For me, at the beginning of this school year, I gained a new student who was in the 6th grade. She had a math deficit in the area of math calculation and math problem solving. And at the beginning of the year, we give a universal screener to all of our students. When she took her universal screener in math, she scored at the 3rd grade overall level in math. So as a 6th grader, it was difficult for her to be in class gaining 6th grade content, but she's actually on a 3rd grade level. So her general ed teacher and I started collaborating. And once we collaborated, we developed a plan on how we were going to meet her needs. We communicated weekly, sometimes daily, to evaluate her progress and to ensure that she was in the right trajectory. When she took her winter benchmark, I'm so proud to say that she grew 30 points and her score placed her at the beginning of the 5th grade level in math. We celebrated that thing so huge, guys, because it was just a matter of her being there, us collaborating together, us staying on point and staying on track, helping her meet her needs. And so this is an example of how good collaboration can lead to student success. It is important because it gives teachers the ability to see learning from different perspectives. One of my peers shared this with me, and she just said the collaboration between SPED and Gen Ed is vital for the success of the student. She said that she thought that there was a misconception that SPED is expected to get students to grade level. However, SPED's job is really to fill in the gaps and to provide them with tools necessary to succeed in that general education classroom. The general education teacher might be expecting them to perform on grade level along with their peers. Therefore, when communication happens between the SPED teacher and the general education teacher, it creates a full picture of that child. So SPED truly knows the student's abilities so they can inform general education teachers on what success looks like for that student. Therefore, general education teachers know how hard to push them, when to accommodate, and if the student is meeting their goals. Now, while collaboration is important, collaboration is not without challenges. One of the most common challenges is finding mutual planning time. Another challenge may be varying learning styles. Teachers may have to adapt their styles for a more collaborative teaching environment. And another thing is, when you are teaching and you're trying to collaborate, you have to have an administration that is on board with that too. And I'm so thankful that where I am, the administration is on board with us collaborating and trying to meet weekly, sometimes daily, to collaborate so that we are in sync with each other and so that we do know what to expect. The next part that I wanted to talk about is how do you effectively collaborate? And I think Dr. Pope hit on this as well as Denise. But the important things about how to effectively collaborate is that communication. I think that's the number one thing for how to effectively collaborate. You have to communicate. And like Denise said, when we started, collaboration back in the day was more or less like it was unheard of because you were in your classroom as a special education teacher and the general education teacher was in their classroom. Now we have so many different ways to communicate through text messaging, through emailing, in person. There's so many avenues in which you can communicate and effectively collaborate. In person is so much better, but if you can in person, emailing and texting and talking on the phone is a way that you can communicate. But then it also a way to or how you can effectively communicate is by sharing your resources and, share your resources. Like Denise said, we have certain resources that we bring to the table, and I'll say it's certain gifts that we bring to the table. And if we are utilizing those gifts within that general education classroom, then we are sharing our resources not only with our students, but with the whole entire classroom. So everybody benefits from those gifts that you are pouring out and allowing to be used, as well as when the general education teacher shares their gifts. We are learning and increasing our knowledge in areas of which, we had never been exposed to. The next thing I think would be positive is identifying what will work best for the teachers and the students, and then just simply being honest with each other. Those are ways of how we can effectively collaborate. And I'm going to turn it back over to Denise and let her share some ways on how to effectively communicate and how it's doable within her setting.
Thank you, Krista. So I think you did hit on almost all those points of one other thing that I think we need to talk about is trust. So for me, going into that gen ed classroom, I don't know about you all, but I can teach all day when children are watching me. But when there's an adult in the room, I am constantly thinking, oh, did I say that right? Did I, we're just so much more vulnerable. And so for a gen ed teacher to have a special education teacher come in, if that is the level of collaboration you've agreed upon, if you're in that classroom, they're feeling like they're being scrutinized and whatever. So you have to work on that trust with each other. And make yourself vulnerable, and as well as them. And so that's where I think the more you can kind of, what's the word I'm trying to look for? When you make yourself necessary. So that teacher stops thinking about, oh, they're watching me, they're criticizing me, they're, I didn't say that right, or I didn't, they're like, oh, she's in here just to help things better, make things better. Or when they come to you about a behavior, you're not judging them. It's not that. So you need to formulate that trust with each other. Communication is going to be the absolute key. And again, like Carissa was saying, having that administrative support, if they're not buying into it, or your special education central office is not buying into it, you're not going to have the time to do those things. But I think we see such power, and it kind of makes me think about ants. I know that sounds a little crazy, but if you think about an ant, it's a well-known fact that ants can carry 50 times their body weight. Okay, think about your favorite teacher. She tries her best to carry all that weight. Whether it's a gen ed teacher or a special ed teacher or related service provider, we want to carry it all. They're my kids, my work, my, and that's a little bit of our pride sometimes, but we want to do it. That's what we've been told that we're supposed to do. But now we've added collaboration in. And just like the ants, when they work together as a team, they can achieve much bigger accomplishments. They can move, watermelons. I guess you've all seen the cartoons, they can do such amazing feats. And I think if we look at collaboration in that way of us working together, finding that common ground, it's not SPED kids, Gen Ed kids, or it's not my kids, your kids, but we come together for that major purpose of we want our children to learn and succeed. We want our teachers to stay and not feel so overwhelmed. And we have somebody that's going to talk to you about that in a little while too. So a little plug in for Dr. Tiffany. But we want people to feel like we have your back. And so in that collaboration, that's going to happen. If I'm having a bad day, my teacher knows, if she's having a bad day, and we figure out how to work that out together. So just having that communication, having that trust, being honest, being vulnerable, asking for help. It is not, 20 plus years, Carissa, and I still ask for help. Do you?
I do. And I think when you move toward a more collaborative approach, you will hear less voicing about yours and mine, and it becomes an hour. As we move and continue to move in a more collaborative approach, you won't hear a lot of teachers saying yours and mine. It'll be more of our students need us, our students need you just as much as they need me. And when you start hearing the language in your building changing, you will know the collaboration is actually taking place.
And we can't do it overnight, can we?
No, we can't.
It's a process. It's a process. So at this time, unless you have something else to add on, Carissa, I think we have hit our point on what is collaboration, why it's important, how to be effective. And my biggest thing is just try it. Just try it. It is so amazing to work with our gen ed teachers. And you have so much as a special education teacher to offer, and they have so much to give you. And if we can find that common ground, the world, we just so many amazing things to say.
And don't be afraid to fail. It's okay. You can pick yourself back up. It's trial and error. So don't be afraid to make mistakes along the way, because that's definitely going to happen. But you'll learn. There'll be learning experiences, and there'll be motivators to push you to try even harder. Thank you, Dr. Penn.
Those students are, they're my motivator. Are they yours, Carissa? I want to see them. I want to see them come back to me in high school, when they graduated from high school and all these great things they did. And I know it started based on what we did in elementary school.
Exactly.
So already I'm getting goosebumps today. This is what you're saying is so very important. And you said some profound things in these few minutes. I love the ant analogy. Love the ant analogy. That is a powerful idea. And the idea that these children are not yours, they're not mine, they're ours. That's another powerful idea that I love. I just have to throw that in before we go to questions. So if we have a couple of teachers, a gen ed, a SPED teacher who decide, look, we want to go teach. We want to get this going, and we haven't done it before. What would you recommend as their very first steps to do? Who to talk to, what to plan, what to focus on in terms of getting it started?
I think the very first step is going to be talking to your administration to make sure that it is doable in your building. With that being said, the master schedule goes out and your schedule is set one way and the general education teachers is set one way. You would have to start there to make sure that it's something that can be attainable for that particular school year within your building. Denise, I'll acquiesce to you.
I agree. And that's absolutely going to be your number one. But I would highly encourage, like I told you, I found my little sweet spot this year in just kind of pushing in. And I would encourage that, start out just trying to do 20, 30 minutes. Start out there, see how you work together, see how your personalities, your learning styles, I have been in a co-teaching situation and that it wasn't comfortable, and I'm not sure we ever would have gotten there. And I don't want to be the downer, but I do think you have to take into consideration when you have two people working together to truly get to a co-teaching, you have to have that stride with each other. So maybe trying it to see, hey, do we mesh, or maybe we need to find, another teacher to see. To me, that is the best way to see that classroom culture, to see that classroom community. If I'm going into a classroom that has zero behavior management, that's going to be a really big struggle for me. But so I think you have to kind of see, do our personalities, do our philosophies, they don't have to be exact, but we do have to have some common ground. Or they're going to dread you coming in and you're going to dread coming in. And I'm sorry, I'm very real. But that would be my experience. Try it first. Try a little bit at a time and grow with that.
And I think that's why mentioned starting with the school administration, because the school administration is in both of you all's classes, evaluating both of you all throughout the school year. So when you go to them, they can also, like Denise said, to even see if you guys are a perfect fit, because sometimes the administration can know, well, yeah, it's a great idea, but this may work better with this particular teacher. Like Denise said, she's fortunate to work with a friend, but sometimes friends working together is not a good thing. So that's why I said start with the school administration. But I truly think that, like Denise said, getting in there and just starting small chunks of time and then increasing over time to see how effective that is, and use your data from that. Look at your data after you've done that and see if it is, heading in the right direction, because you wouldn't want to continue it if the data didn't show or prove that it was working and was effective. Thank you for your question.
So that kind of leads to the next question. In getting this started, there may be some people who are hesitant, who may not know about it, who may be in their comfort zone and not in favor of changes. And so how would you sell this to people who may or may not support it? What are the selling points you would bring to people?
Chris, I'm gonna let you go first on that one again.
I think the selling points would be, for me, is to find or connect with individuals who have done it and who were successful with it. Actually taking a professional development day and, allowing that teacher as well as yourself to go out and actually see it being done. Now, I know with COVID now, things are very difficult to get into other buildings and be able to get in to do observations. But in the past, when I've worked for other school districts, that was something that was so welcoming for us to, when you are trying to try something new, go see it first, go watch it in action, and then come back and then discuss what you like about it, what you didn't like about it, and what you think you could do differently within your environment, because no two environments are the same. And so I think that would be my starting point for someone who may not technically be on board. I think if you show them all sides of it, they will realize that it's something to help take and alleviate some of the stresses and the work that would be done by one teacher. It would give that person accountability to another person, but also that person would be able to work together for the benefit of a classroom that could evolve and do so many things within a classroom, because you have two people sharing gifts. And it's not just, we are very, very selfish in that we want to keep our own. It's my room. I don't want another individual coming in, and telling me what to do within my classroom setting. But then when I realize the individual is able to come in and help alleviate some of those stresses that may come with, education, it's a welcome invitation to come in. So that's what I would say. I would say if you could find someone who's already doing it, and then see if you could convince that teacher who may not be on board to go in with you and observe. So that's my take on the question. Denise, I'll let you take it.
I 100% agree. Exactly what you said, that we all learn best if we see it in action, or we're all about real. Let's do real situations. And I think some of that is a misunderstanding of what it looks like. That gen ed teacher may think, oh, that's one more thing I have to do. That's one more thing I have to be accountable for, kind of like Carissa was saying. And I think showing them, wow, this year I have been, our district is using the EL curriculum which is an amazing curriculum, but it is very rigorous. And I have been going in with the gen ed teacher and just helping to try to modify the test and seeing what a challenge that has been. But I think that my teacher is looking at that in such a different way. So sometimes it might be, just helping them through, showing them what gifts you have, showing them what you have to contribute. But I have to be honest with so many of our kids in the classroom for 80% of the time with behaviors, with an increase in autism and things like that. I think most teachers out there, if they realize what you had to offer, would jump at a chance to have some extra help. And I did kind of do a little survey with my teachers that I'm working with. They've had EAs in the classroom with them, and that's been very beneficial too. But they said, having another certified teacher in the classroom that can help take the load. It's not another person that I have to direct or another person that I have to manage, but it's a person who's going to take initiative and help where it's needed. So, I think just letting them present to them what all it has to offer could definitely change their minds.
What I hear you describing here are planting those seeds of trust and getting that relationship started. So,
Exactly.
That's, I can see how that is absolutely key to making this work. You're both experienced in co-teaching, and to move a little to the negative side, what are some things you should avoid? What are some things that are deal breakers? What are some barriers? So talk about some things that you should be aware of and avoid.
I know one drawback, especially of having the special ed teacher in the classroom, is we do have IEP meetings. So, we're not always there 100% of the time, possibly, or frequently we have to deal with behaviors within another class, So I do think those can be negative. And that was one of the cons that one of my teachers wrote. She was like, I love when you're in here, but I can't always 100%, count on you being here every day. And obviously if I'm not there, it's for a major reason. I'm not, doing my nails or something. It's a reason. And she knows that, but I think that was a con too, because when you are planning to have that person, when you are, then you have to change plans. But I think we're all in education. We've all taught through COVID. We've taught through, we have to be flexible. And I think, to me, that is that is a negative, but it's one we can overcome. Carissa, what do you think?
I agree with you, Denise. That is true. We do have so many other responsibilities throughout. And then too, when you are, trying to push in and help in a particular classroom, but then you do not have the ability to do it throughout the whole entire school. I think that's a drawback. It's just myself and another resource teacher at my school, along with an educational assistant. And so, would we love to be able to do it K-6? Absolutely. But we're just not there yet. We don't have the capacity to do that. And so we have to start small and then build from that. But then even thinking of the future right now, it can be difficult if the staffing is not available to do where your mind is taking you. Once you get in this and you buy into it and you love it and you see what it can do, you want to do it school wide. And so, once you start that, like I said, you have to start small. So I think that's a kickback when you're not able to just be able to say, yes, I'll do it for every teacher in every grade level. I think that's a kickback.
Related to that right there, there's a question. Have you ever done co-teaching, or is co-teaching done with SPED teachers and art teachers or music teachers or physical education teachers? Does co-teaching happen in those settings?
For me, that has never happened in those settings. When I taught in Memphis City schools, we did not do that. And more so in Murfreesboro City School, it's been more of, like Denise said, more of a push-in type situation. It hasn't been a lot of co-teaching in certain areas, unless it's a situation as to where, we had to go in and help the particular teacher. But no, I have not seen it done in the special area aspect. Denise, have you?
Carissa, I have not, but I do want to say, Dr. Clark, that collaboration definitely is still occurring in our special area classes,
Exactly.
especially with behavior. That's usually the one that I have to assist a little bit more. So it could be me going in for a small amount of time, but as far as like co-teaching, and they would not want me in the art room. I can just say that. Music, maybe. Art and PE, no way. But I think we have to support those students. But typically, the academic strain is not, the rigor for academics is not there. And that just really has to be what we place as most important. But definitely we want, especially our more severe kids. I do know more of our self-contained teachers, we call CDC. Yes. So they probably go into those classes a little bit more, or their educational assistants do, to support, but normally it's to support those communication needs or sensory needs or things like that. But our typical resource, learning disabled, autism, things like that, typically we just are not able to get into the classroom for that. But I mean, that's an exciting idea. But again, it's more about collaborating with them, giving them ideas and suggestions, how to deal with behaviors, how to deal with, like in library. I think library is kind of a big one because they do more than just read books in library, and so our kids, and so we do put accommodations into their IEPs. We do talk to those teachers about that. They come to us. So there is a collaboration going on. At least that is my experience. But as far as like true co-teaching, where I'm in the art room or the music room, no, we have not done that. It's a great idea.
And I agree with Denise there. There is a strong collaboration there. And like Denise said, we do collaborate with the special area teachers. And like Denise also stated, that it's more so for behavioral aspects, to give them, tools and resources to use with kids that may have behavior issues. But typically our students in that setting thrive. That is one area that our students typically thrive in. So we are normally not heavily needed in those areas for the co-teaching aspect. That would be more in the gen ed setting where the academics may, be more of an issue for our students. But yeah, the collaboration piece is there. That's something that we do at the beginning of the year. We collaborate and sit down and go over IEPs at a glance with our special area team so that they know what to expect from our students and who will need a little bit more assistance in certain areas for behavior or just different things of that nature, but not as far as a co-teaching process. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the future. Maybe that's something that we can look forward to. Would love to be able to get in. I'm good in basketball. I'm kind of cold, so I'd love to get in there and co-teach in PE with some teachers.
And I think it's helpful to hear the two of you articulate using the words collaborate versus co-teach, and just to show that it's both are working together, but they're just at a different level of working together. So collaboration and co-teaching. There's a time in our year where assessment is top priority. Well, throughout the year, but I'm talking about in the spring during the assessment times. Do you have any suggestions in terms of your co-teaching roles? Any strategies, any successes in terms of supporting teachers and the school during assessment times?
Actually, my school has been preparing for that. We usually plan during our PLCs, professional learning communities. And in that, we attend those PLCs and we create a plan as to how our special education team is going to support the general education team during the time that we're moving into the assessment time of our year. And how we do it is, we're provided all of the lesson plans, and we're able to plan with them to get the lesson plans, and making sure that we're double hitting and hitting on areas and in areas that students need. So that's basically how we do it at my school. We just double up. We look at our bubble students, and we look at our students that are easily moved, and we really work hard on a strategic plan for them as to what we can do and how we can, I guess this is crunch time. So the things that we can do to help move them, and so that they can be successful when that assessment comes. Denise.
Yes, we do the same. I think the biggest thing is, in our setting, we are working more on the students' deficits. So, I'm not doing sixth grade science in my room. But if I know that sixth grade science is working on, I don't know, habitats or something like that, then I might try to do some reading passages on how, I might try to bring in some elements of what they're doing. So that kind of pairs up, gives them some more background knowledge. Another thing that I think we do, and we do this throughout the year, Dr. Clark, is making sure that we write their IEP to include the accommodations that they need when they're taking those state tests. So if they need to be read aloud to, we're practicing that throughout the year, or if they need to be in a different setting. I have a really cool story that's happening right now. I have a student who, she has such great ideas and thoughts. She's reading on a very low level, but she has trouble getting her thoughts on paper. Like she, can barely get a sentence on paper, but she has so much to offer. And so we have started using some assistive technology where she is dictating her sentences into the computer, into Google Docs. It's like a speech to text. I'm sure all y'all are familiar with that. They had to teach me how to do it. I'm kind of a dinosaur with technology sometimes. But so this student is practicing this on a daily basis in my room when we do journals. And so when state testing comes and she has to do the writing part, she has that accommodation in place that we've already decided in her IEP. We've practiced it. We've worked it out. And so when she takes the writing portion of our 10 Ready test, she will be able to dictate her sentences. Now, the sad part is I don't get to talk to her about it ahead of time. That's the part that does make state testing a little bit difficult, because the things that we do on a regular basis, we're not always allowed to do on that state testing. But I think a big thing is just having that big picture and knowing where we're headed, trying to support the gen ed curriculum the best we can, but we can't lose sight of our goal of closing in those gaps, hitting those deficits, and trying to move them on. And then just making sure that they can access the test in the best way that they can.
Thank you. That's an area that we have much to learn in terms of how we can collaborate as educators to best support students. So thanks for those ideas. We have a question from a teacher of English learners. And so this teacher says, I'm an ELL teacher, and I always struggle to help my English learners with IEPs, especially with reading difficulties. Any thoughts on how I could better support them? Any resources or trainings that you can recommend?
Wow. Well, one thing I can say is our ESL teachers are phenomenal. They honestly, there's lots of times in my building that I'm learning from them. They offer so much. So I would highly encourage you to find a mentor within your building or within your school district that is used to working with dual students. That can be difficult because that reading impacts so much. Gosh, as far as resources, I'm so sorry. There's just nothing popping into my head. Carissa, do you something that you're thinking of that you've utilized?
Well, I mean, I think in the district we're using is it Language for Learning is one that we're using that has helped with a lot of our ESL students, and so I think that's a start. because I do have some that are dual. And so I know over the years that has been very, very key for some of our students that were non-English learners. And I'm trying to think, there's another resource that we use. I can't think of the name of it right now, but I know Language for Learning has been very good. But like Denise said, finding a mentor person within your district that has had a lot of experience working with both ESL students and SPED students, because we are seeing the overlap a lot. And it's increasing each year. And so I think that would be key to being able to at least give you a start as to where you can start.
And also just collaborating with that SPED teacher. So at my school, the ESL teachers really are not teaching phonics. They're teaching more vocabulary and they're teaching more of the comprehension aspect. So for a student that we share, I just let her know, hey, I am focusing on sight words. I'm focusing on decoding. We're working on a program called Just Words. I've got this covered with him. Can you work on writing? Can you work on, which is vocabulary is great, but can you work on his comprehension? And so I think having that collaboration conversation between SPED and ESL is powerful too. And I'm really blessed to have some great teachers in the building. They attend all of my IEP meetings. They give input into what's going on. So I think it just goes back to that collaboration piece, and each child is going to be different and what they need.
Okay, thanks for that. This question it's not the first time we've heard this question in the PK-12 collaborative. As I mentioned earlier, we have an ELL collaborative that works like the SPED collaborative, and we've been doing this for 4 years for the ELL collaborative. This question is a repeated question about how best to support children who have IEPs and who are English learners. And so a resource for you is we will offer what we call the Cross Collaborative. And we started our first Cross Collaborative this year, but there will be upcoming Cross Collaboratives in which we will bring together SPED teachers and teachers of English learners. And we will also involve school counselors in that conversation, because we've heard it time and time again. So in answer to the question from this EL teacher, hopefully we may be able to offer some resources to you through the PK-12 collaborative here at MTSU.
I love that, Dr. Clark. That's wonderful.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so what we've learned in the collaborative is that we don't work in silos. Children don't live in silos, and the service we give overlaps. Mm-hmm. And so that's why co-teaching is important, collaboration is important, and sharing ideas and sharing the overlap in how we understand each other's practice, and children only benefit from that. So that's what we're going for here in the collaborative. Sorry to give a plug there, but I think it applies to the question that was asked. So, and that's all the questions we have at this point. So Denise Perkins and Carissa Krisman, you have given us much to think about. And I believe that some of the things you've said today, teachers will take into the classroom tomorrow, and their practice will be better for it. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Yes, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I want to tell you thanks for your service on the SPED Collaborative Advisory Board with Dr. Pence. So we'll look forward to your assisting us in the future. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.